Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. I didn't expect the sentence to land the way it did. I just see you as a friend now. Evelyn said it calmly, like she was explaining a change in weather, not quietly redrawing the borders of my life. We were sitting across from each other at the small cafe we used to call ours, the one where the barista knew our order and the window seat always caught the afternoon light. I nodded because nodding felt easier than arguing with something that had already happened in her head. I'm Marcus. I'm 34. I work a job that pays the bills and leaves me tired in a normal way. I'm not dramatic, not loud, not the kind of guy who slams doors or makes scenes. I've always believed relationships don't need constant fireworks to be real. Consistency mattered more to me. Showing up, planning ahead, making space. Evelyn used to say she loved that about me, said I made her feel safe. We'd been together for a little over 2 years. Not a whirlwind, not a fairy tale, but steady. I planned dates. I remembered birthdays. I checked in when she was stressed. Somewhere along the line, the balance shifted. I noticed it in small ways at first. The way she'd pull her hand back when I reached for it. How plans became maybes, then silence. I told myself not to overthink it. People get busy. Feelings ebb and flow. That's life. So when she said it, I didn't explode. I didn't beg. I just asked one question. What does that mean for us? She shrugged, eyes drifting to her coffee. I don't know. I just don't feel that way anymore. I still care about you. Just differently. There was relief in her voice. Like she'd finally said something she'd been rehearsing for weeks. I went home that night and sat on the edge of my bed longer than I'd like to admit. I wasn't angry. I was tired. Tired of guessing. Tired of leaning forward while someone leaned back. And that's when something clicked. If she saw me as a friend, then I would treat her like one. Not out of spite. Out of respect for what she said. The next day, I stopped initiating. No morning texts. No, did you get home safe? Messages. I didn't ask about her schedule or try to sync mine to it. When she sent a meme, I replied hours later, the way friends do when they're busy living their own lives. It felt strange at first, like learning to walk with a different rhythm. But it also felt honest. A week passed. Then another. She noticed. You could hear it in the pauses between her messages. The subtle "everything okay?" that came wrapped in casual language. I told her the truth. I'm treating this the way you defined it. She laughed awkwardly and said I was being dramatic. I didn't argue. Friends don't argue about emotional access. They respect boundaries. If you've ever been in a situation where someone redefined the relationship without asking how it would affect you, hit like and share the story so it reaches the people who need to hear it. Our anniversary was coming up. I'd booked a quiet restaurant weeks in advance, the kind with soft lighting and no TVs on the walls. When I realized the date was 2 days away, I checked my phone. No mention from her. No hint of anticipation. Just a hey and a question about a show she was watching. That's when I canceled the reservation. Calmly, politely, no speech attached. When I told her, she stared at me like I'd broken some unspoken rule. You didn't have to cancel, she said. I looked at her and said, friends don't celebrate anniversaries. The words landed heavier than I expected. Her mouth opened, then closed. She nodded slowly, like she was recalibrating a story she thought she already understood. That night I went for a walk alone. I thought about how often we accept half roles in our own lives just to avoid loss. How easy it is to stay close enough to feel the absence every day. I wasn't punishing her. I was choosing myself. Comment below with one word that describes how you felt when you realized someone didn't value you the way you valued them. She texted me later, said she felt like she was losing me. I didn't reply right away, not because I wanted control, but because I finally understood something important. You can't convince someone to want you by offering them more of what they already chose to live without. The next few days were quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar. Not empty, just different. I focused on work, went to the gym, caught up with a friend I hadn't seen in months. The kind of things you put off when your world quietly revolves around one person. Evelyn kept checking in, casual messages that carried a new edge. Are you mad? You seem distant. I answered honestly. I'm fine. Just giving this the space it needs. That's when the tone changed. She asked if we could talk. We met at the park near her apartment, the one where we used to sit on a bench and plan trips we never quite took. She looked nervous, folding and unfolding her hands like she was waiting for a verdict. I didn't think you'd actually pull away, she said. I thought we'd still, be close. I let the silence sit for a moment. Not to be cruel, but because silence has a way of telling the truth when words get tangled. Close how? I asked. She struggled to answer. That was the problem. She wanted the comfort, the attention, the emotional safety net, without the responsibility of choosing me. And I realized something else in that moment. I'd been auditioning for a role that no longer existed. She said she missed how things used to be. I told her I did too. But missing something doesn't bring it back. And nostalgia isn't a plan. I explained calmly that when she said she saw me as a friend, I believed her. And believing someone means adjusting your behavior, not hoping they'll change their mind if you wait long enough. Her eyes filled with tears, not because she suddenly loved me again, but because consequences had arrived without warning. She admitted she hadn't expected me to stop prioritizing her, to stop planning around her availability, to stop touching her arm when we laughed. I didn't say this out loud, but it struck me how often people don't miss you, they miss how you made them feel. If you're watching this and you've ever been told to just be patient, while your needs were quietly ignored, drop a comment and let's talk about it. Do you think distance creates clarity, or does it just reveal what was already there? We parted that day without a dramatic goodbye. No promises, no ultimatums. Just an understanding that something had shifted permanently. That night, she called. I didn't pick up. Not out of anger, but because I knew what that call would do. It would blur lines that had finally become clear. A week later, she showed up at my place unannounced. I opened the door and saw a version of her I hadn't seen in months. Unsure, vulnerable, reaching. She said she'd made a mistake, that she felt jealous thinking of me moving on. I listened. I really did. But listening doesn't mean surrendering your self-respect. I told her something I'd been thinking about for days. Friendship shouldn't hurt, and love shouldn't feel like you're slowly disappearing. She asked if there was any chance of fixing things. I said maybe someday with someone else. Not because she was a bad person, but because I didn't want to relearn my worth through the same lesson. She left quietly. This time, the silence didn't feel heavy. Felt earned. In the weeks that followed, I noticed how my body felt lighter. How my thoughts weren't constantly orbiting around someone else's indecision. I wasn't happier in a loud, celebratory way. I was steadier, and that mattered more. I learned that boundaries aren't punishments. They're translations. They take what someone says and turn it into action. When Evelyn said she saw me as a friend, I listened. And in listening, I found myself again. If this story resonated with you, like it, comment with your perspective and subscribe. Not just for more stories, but because conversations like this help people choose themselves without guilt. I don't regret canceling that anniversary dinner. I don't regret stepping back. What I regret is how long it took me to realize that being understood is just as important as being loved. Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do, for yourself and for someone else, is to believe them the first time they tell you who you are to them and act accordingly.